Today I'm going to be showing you a 90% crit build for the Hammer of Ancients, capable of hitting 10 to 20 million, up to 20 million plus with an elixir at about 80% mid-max. I expect when it's mid-max completely and I have all the right rolls maxed, I'll be hitting north of 30 million on the powered up attacks, which I'll get to in a moment. Starting with the helm, ideally Harley Quinn's quest, but let's pass over that. You want cooldown reduction, you want maximum fury, you want strength, you want maximum life, and you want the best quality ruby. Second, you can run damaging and elite, but ideally what you want to run is the one that lets you increase your armor based off how many hits you get. Once you get going, you're generally at least about 50% of the max value, and when you really start hammering, then you're at 100, and you stay at 100 till you stop hammering. On to our chest piece. We want damage reduction to close, damage reduction against distant, damage reduction from all sources, and maximum life. For this, we will be taking basic skills grant damage reduction. For the gauntlet, take Hammer of the Ancient ranks, take critical strike chance, take attack speed, and take strength. For this, you'll be running bonus damage when you have a barrier active. For the pants, ideally you want temerity, and the number one thing you want is the high value on the barrier. Now, if you don't get this, then you want maximum life, damage reduction from close, damage reduction from distant, damage reduction from all sources, and a good fifth one is total armor. For the boots, you're going to be taking movement speed, fury cost reduction, berserking duration, and then movement speed after killing an elite, or if you need more stats to get some of your secondary bonuses, you can pick up more stats on your boots. For the affix, we're going to be running the weapon mastery skills have an additional charge with the lucky hit up to 40 or whatever percent to stun the enemies. We are mainly taking this for the additional charge because we do not run lucky hit in the build, but occasionally we do get the stun. The two-handed mace determines how much damage we do on the high end, so it is really good to have a high damage per second. Having a high damage per second and a mid-range critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, if you're putting out 400 more damage per second than a secondary mace, which has a higher crit strike and higher vulnerable damage roll, you will still put out more damage. So damage first, then we definitely do want critical strike damage and vulnerable damage. Then we want core skill damage, and you can either go strength, or if you need more to your secondary Paragon bonuses, then you can take a all stat. Now, a couple other good ones is damage to slow and damage to crowd control, but do make sure that it at least has critical strike damage and vulnerable damage for it to really hit hard. For our affix, we're going to take Hammer of the Ancient Quakes Outwards. Now, this is to deal more damage all around. If you want your high end dealing more damage, which you're going to suffer a little bit more on the overall all around when you're not powering up your attack, you can put each point of fury you generate while at your maximum fury grants your next core attack to up to 60% bonus damage, and then put the 75% damage outward in the amulet. Moving on to our two one-handed weapons, we want swords for the critical strike damage. Same exact roll as the mace. We're looking for critical strike damage, vulnerable damage top priority, then strength, core damage, damage to slow, damage to crowd control. For our affixes on the one-handed swords, we are going to take bonus damage based off our primary resource, and attacking enemies with a basic skill increases our next core damage. For our other two-handed weapon, we are going to take Ancient's Oath. Top priority is ranks of Steel Grasp. Steel Grasp is what's going to really help us put out high DPS, damage per second, not overall high number, even though our overall high number is crazy high. So we want high ranks to Steel Grasp, but this build is even playable if you get the lowest value on all of these because of the legendary affix on this and how many ranks it would give you. It would still give you 6 ranks. For the amulet, top priority, cooldown reduction, movement speed, ranks to no mercy for increased critical strike chance, and ranks to heavy handed for increased critical strike damage. Fury cost reduction and ranks to pit fighter are good secondaries. You're going to be using your highest royal or gem for the skull. For our rings, we're going to be taking critical strike chance, critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, and then resource generation or maximum fury. Resource generation to get more fury, maximum fury to get higher damage output on our built up attacks. You can run 2 and 2, or you can split the resource generation and maximum fury 1 and 1. Both are really good, just one benefits you one way and one benefits you another. For our affixes, we have 2 choices. We either run you gain 6 fury per second while berserking, and then killing an enemy with a core skill refunds part of the base fury cost. Your second option, and you will need high values in order to make this really playable endgame, low values will not cut it. Your shout skills generate fury per second, and you will need, whenever you cast a shout skill, its cooldown is reduced, and make sure to use this by nearby enemies to cap out your cooldown reduction. For expertise, we will be using the 2-handed axe expertise. Moving on to the skill tree. So for our basic, for resource gen and berserking bonus damage, we're going to be taking combat, lunging, strike. If you do happen to get god rolls of both of the shout skills and you do go that route and you don't need the resource gen anymore, you could go with more damage reduction with frenzy or flay. We're obviously taking Hammer of the Ancients to Furious Hammer of the Ancients to get serious damage when we have maximum fury. Now, we're taking Endless Fury, but if you do happen to have both those Shout God rolls already done, you can move those points into Challenging Shout or Movement Speed, because you won't really need that resource gen anymore. Now, we're going to be taking gain 15% additional life. You're just going to be taking 1 rank into Rallying Cry. You'll get the rest off your gear. This is not really a big one that you need. You're going to be getting your resource gen anyway. You will be taking this to get a little bit of extra resources. Why not? Challenging Shout, you can put a couple of ranks late game. Like I said, if you do get that Shout build up, you can put some points here. And then you'll be taking, when Challenging Shout is active, you gain 3 fury each time you take damage. Movement speed, we're going to be taking, we have damage reduction while berserking. We have, while berserking, fury generation is increased. We have your shout skills effect duration is increased. Reduced damage while our shout skills are active. You can also put end game late points that you move over from having a maxed out shout, those 2 aspects. You can put that into your shouts heal allies. Now, you can also remove the ultimate I'm about to show you once you got your shout skills done. If you do have both those god aspects, then you'll be replacing the ultimate I'm about to show you with 1 rank in Warcry, and then you're going to take it to berserking. We do not really benefit from Fortify, so you could take Power Warcry, or you could just leave it at rank 2 on the Warcry. Then we're going to be taking 3 ranks of Pit Fighter, 3 ranks of No Mercy, and 3 ranks to Expose Vulnerability. Expose Vulnerability isn't that crucial, but every time we do hit with our Steel Grasp, we get 2.5 seconds of vulnerability. Now, it takes about 1 second to slam the hammer and actually inflict the damage, so now we're down to 1.5 seconds of vulnerability. So we're just resetting that to an additional 3 seconds. So we're basically making our Steel Grasp combo with the Hammer of the Ancients basically inflict vulnerability for about 4 to 4.5 seconds. So that is why I run that up there. Not only is it okay for solo gameplay, it really helps out in team gameplay. Now, the cooldown with having a maxed out unique, as you can see, this is just 1 rank in it, comes to 5.92 seconds, very fast. With 3 chains, we can spam this so frequently, allowing you to do insanely high DPS because you're just grouping up mobs. Then we obviously are taking this to berserking because we want more berserking damage. That's 25% additional damage for our core after we group them up. Then we're going to be taking heavy-handed for more critical damage. We're going to be taking wallop for more damage. Then we're going to be taking Iron Maelstrom. This is really great to kill the ads. Because we're swapping weapons anyway, you generally reduce the cooldown of this somewhere between 10 to 15 to even upwards of about 20 seconds, depending on what you're doing. But at least 10 seconds, you knock the cooldown off this every single time. So we're mostly looking at like a 20 to 25 second cooldown, allowing you to use it every other section. Because this is an insanely high crit build to begin with, this gives us a 100% crit chance when we use this with increased critical damage, and actually allows this to hit really hard. It doesn't really shred elites, but it will shred the non-elites. So Iron Maelstrom, until you get your shout skills all the way up, is really good. Like I said, if you do happen to run the 2 shout aspects instead of the 2 regen aspects, then you can replace Iron Maelstrom with Warcry. Then we'll be running Unbridled Rage for our passive. We deal an insane amount more damage, and we don't really worry about the Fury cost. Moving on to the Paragon board. Now you'll notice I have 2 available points. Those points only benefit if we have the 2 shout affixes maxed. So I'll show you where to put that if you do run that. Otherwise, you're just going to put it in +2 health because there's nothing you can do with it that benefits you. So just copy and paste this, and I will show you the glyphs. We are running Wrath because Core Skills is our main attack. And it also gives us a second good additional bonus, skills that generate Fury. This is a critical strike build, so that generates a lot of Fury. So I'm going to pause the screen, or we're just going to sit here for about 5 seconds, and we'll show you the bottom half of this Paragon, and now I will show you the top half of this Paragon. So if you need to, you can just go back, hit pause, and see where you need to go. I'll do that with all the Paragon boards. Now moving on to the glyph, we have Territorial. This is because all our attacks are close range. Bonus damage to close range, bonus damage reduction from close range. Our third board uses this legendary node. Now this board, I should be able to just show you all the nodes, which I can, so we'll leave this up for about 5 seconds, and then I'll show you the glyph. Moving on to the glyph. The big thing here is swapping weapons has an 18% chance to critically strike. Now, this combined with ranks of no mercy, the rings, the gloves, high values, you're looking at just under or 90% critical strike chance. We also get bonus damage every time we swap weapons. Our fourth board is going to be running the legendary node Carnage. So try to position it over here so you can see the entire board, and then we will move on to the glyph. For the glyph, we're going to be taking Crusher. Our main damage that our Hammer of the Ancient scales off of is with a mace. This gives us bonus damage while we're using a mace, and we care less about the secondary bonus, but when we do overpower, it's 30% increased damage, so that still is nice. Now, our final board will be using the legendary node Warbringer, the entire board, and then we'll move on to the glyph. For our last glyph, we'll be taking Exploit because this gives us bonus vulnerable damage, the best damage that you can boost in the game. We inflict vulnerable every time before we do our massive attack, 100% of the time. So this is massive for us. It also lets us inflict vulnerable very quickly on enemies, so we can use our basic attack and then follow it up by the core attack and at least hit for a couple of million really quick depending on our Fury. If you have no Fury, you might be just under a million on your initial attack, but at full Fury, you're looking at least a million, and if you have passed that and a couple basic attacks built up, you'll be at least looking at a couple million plus just on a quick attack. We're putting it here because it gets 49 dex. It is the highest dex value where we can get the most amount of benefit from it. And that is my Hammer of the Ancients build. I literally destroy everything. You can chain so many groups with that low cooldown. This build is a fucking monster. If you like the video, leave a like, comment, share. It helps others find the video. I hope this helped.